one. We are ready to go.
And so many committee members are on today. Yay!
I can't tell if Kimbra is, oops.
Technical difficulty. Hold on one second.
Yeah, we're just adjusting the camera, at least from what we can see. I couldn't see Kimbra fully on the camera. So hopefully you can still see us both. And okay, very good. All right, well, we will go ahead and get started. We will call the meeting to order. And we're going to start off the meeting. Kimbra volunteered to read the land acknowledgement.
Okay. So we acknowledge the original inhabitants of this place, the Snohomish people and their successors, the Tulalip tribes. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered on, and taken care of these lands and waters. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. We will strive to be honest about our past mistakes and bring about a future that includes their people, stories, and voices to form a more just and equitable society.
Great. Well, I don't think we have any guests on the meeting. So, and everyone has their camera on and their microphones off, but obviously committee, feel free to put your microphone on when you want to speak, or just if you want to have it on, unless you have a lot of background noise. I will go ahead and read how the public can access this meeting. They can view it through the Everett TV channel or our YouTube channel. They can call the public call-in number, which is 425-616-3920. Conference ID 724-887-726 hashtag. Or they can access the hearing online via the Microsoft Teams meeting link that is on the Citizens Advisory Board webpage at everettwa.gov. Members of the public wishing to learn more about the content of this meeting or provide comment about our discussion may do so by reaching out to staff. And that would be myself, Vicki Dorway, at VDORWAY@everettwa.gov. So I am going to start by introducing our new chairperson. So Josh Brunner kindly volunteered to step in as chair for the committee. And so I am now going to turn it over to him.
Thank you, Vicki. So I'm going to take a roll call here. And I apologize if I mispronounce any names here. Go ahead and just correct me if I say it wrong. Alexis, is it Boaz or Boise?
Boys, like boys and girls.
Boys, okay. Okay, Mike O'Gorman.
I'm here.
Josh Bruner, I'm here. Michelle Martin.
I'm here.
Samantha Hassan. She is listed as excused today, but just in case she showed up. Christina Aho. Chris Dingle.
Present.
Molly Eberhardt.
I'm here.
And Susan Mousehart.
Here.
Great. And doesn't look like we have any guests, but if the staff want to introduce yourselves.
So Vicki Dorway, Community Development Specialist.
And Kimbra Landry, Community Development Manager.
Awesome.
Very good.
Yeah, so I will go ahead and pass over to you guys because it doesn't look like we have any guests. So I don't think we have to get too into the weeds about reminding people to raise hands and stuff like that. So I will pass over to you guys.
Great. Thank you. You're on.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So first thing, so this is going to be hopefully a very quick meeting. I just want to thank everybody for showing up today. We're going to give a brief overview about a change that happened at city council level for this committee. And then we're also going to do a consolidated plan update. And then afterwards, I'm just going to give general staff updates about where things are at. So the first thing is that in March, which feels for some reason so very long ago. I went to city council and did presented an ordinance that renames and restructures this committee. So now you guys are no longer called the Citizens Advisory Committee. You are now the Community Development Advisory Committee. Yay, that's exactly right. A little bit more inclusive, a little bit more transparent about what it is that the work that you actually do on this. Also just mindfulness with the work, with the word of citizens. We just want to be very mindful of that and its use anyway in the community. And so Community Development Advisory Committee is the new name. With that, though, there was also a repealed ordinance, in case anybody's really interested, but a repealed ordinance 3652-18, which was the original creation of this committee. For a little bit of quick history, you guys were created as a committee group after combining what was the Human Needs Committee, funding committee. So we had a group that was just for human needs fund allocations. And then we had a separate group that was the Citizen Advisory Committee, which was just for the federal allocations and for help for staff efficiency, also with just general overview so that everything could be reviewed at the same time in alignment for funding allocations. So again, we're aware of all the funding that we're giving out and everybody's on the same page about that. It became the Citizen Advisory Committee back in 2018. What caused the change this time was not only to revisit, of course, this naming of trying to get a little bit better in our transparency with the general public, but then also to look at the city is getting so much various funding in, and there's going to be opportunities for us to put more competitive funding out into the community later on to be more collaborative with other competitive funding applications that are even happening at different, like at the county level or elsewhere. And so how do we then get everything so that we have a committee group to help oversee a lot of those funding proposals, a lot of those efforts? Well, turns out we already have one that's established. We just need to empower you guys to be able to help with that. And so a lot of the changes that happened, so this ordinance really went into, and this is again available online in case anybody's interested, on the clerk's Laserfiche. But this is also going to end up just changing what's under Everett Municipal Code, EMC Title II, Chapter 93, which is what oversees the creation of your purview and your responsibilities for this committee. And it changes some of that and now expands it to be more reflective. It also included little scriber changes in there like, oh, we want to make sure that anybody we're giving funding to has a legitimate Everett business license and, things like that. And so now that is in the that is now reflective in the code. So if anybody's interested in that, that has already been adopted. That is already part of at least the Laserfiche, the ordinances. As far as getting into the EMC, that might be something that happens when we do code updates. I think that happens at least once a year for us. So it may be a couple more months before you see that in the EMC, but the ordinance is there for you to take a look at in the interim. And it has a strike-through version where you can see where we made changes. The only other thing that we ended up doing with that, and I don't think that this will come as a surprise for anybody, but this used to be an 11-member committee. Again, that was because we combined two bigger committees into one. And so we ended up having this be an 11-member committee. Typically, some other of the committees and boards and commissions for the city are around 9 members instead. I'm not sure, again, that this will be a surprise, but it's been hard for us to have quorum with this committee. And so one of the things that we need to do to make sure that we are moving forward with funding allocations and getting actual of our federal timelines met is we ended up reducing the committee membership structure by just 2 members. We only had 10 on our active register this past year. And so we moved from 11 members down to 9, which means that we moved quorum from 6 down to 5. It's not a huge change, but at the same time, sometimes we only have 5 people, and it's important that we continue to get something moving forward. So again, we can meet our federal timelines. So I wanted to just present this to you guys to be aware that we made the committee change, that we made the naming change, that we changed the membership to it. And then I am going to talk more about membership later in staff updates, but I wanted to have the ordinance be its own standalone item in case there were any questions on any of this from committee members. I will pause here not only for dramatic effect, but also for any questions that people might have on stuff. So going once, going twice, you can always ask me later or email us if anything comes up. Okay. Okay, well, that was real quick. Okay, so the next update that we wanted to give is the consolidated plan. So I want to give a huge shout out. We have had great support, whether that was initially and just kind of looking at how we did public engagement, how we launched our survey, to as of even last Sunday when we had a committee member help us in getting the word out. So thank you so much for the committee members that have attended events, that have put up posters, that have gotten the word out, that have spoken with agencies, that have done the work and even sharing Facebook posts or other social media posts. And so I cannot tell you the gratitude that not only I have, but the rest of the staff and the city has for helping to get the word out. Last time we did this effort 5 years ago, again, I mentioned that we had no more than 300, I think it was like 303 specifically. That was it was a smaller amount of responses for the survey. I will say that as of, we were at the Everett Farmers Market on Sunday, the pop-up event that happened, we got at least 60 paper surveys at that time, which is fabulous. Yes, it's very, very good. But outside of that, we also got, we were currently sitting at about 520 online survey responses. And so I know it's great, it's absolutely great. And so with that, though, this is still something that's going to be up and running until August. So we want to continue to get the word out as best as possible. Again, the goal is 1,000. And while we've done great progress on where we're at so far, we still have a ways to go until we hit 1,000. I would love to even blow 1,000 out of the water and see how much we can really get for feedback on this. But I wanted to, again, kind of include where we're at for survey responses now on this. I'm going to give you some of the feedback of some of the needs that have already come through about those 500 responses. And also just give you some basic updates on where we're at anyway. We're taking a more, I'm not a huge fan of this word, but nothing else is coming to mind, targeted approach to doing outreach now. We're trying to be very specific on trying to meet people, trying to get in front of people, trying to do specific outreach. It's not only to our subrecipients, but we have a list of a couple of hundred groups that we need to do outreach with. That is everything from broadband groups, because technology gaps were something that are identified in our HUD and federal spending plan. So how do we address technology gaps for the underserved? To our economic development groups, so trying to touch base with some of our more higher employers in the city, to our healthcare workers, to our populations that are otherwise underrepresented. It's a huge list. It's an extensive list, and we've done some initial stuff with just trying to get the word out, and now we're also trying to do more. Again, specific approach with doing outreach to trying to talk with certain people in these groups. So we've started to do email outreach, staff has. But again, this is coming back to one of the things that we hope that the committee will continue to help us is getting just the word out, letting us know if something needs to be posted in a certain language, if we need to go and do an in-person presentation somewhere. We've tried to do consistent communication with the committee members that are doing good engagement with us on this. And again, I want to say a huge thank you to those that have done this. But again, there's much more to go. We have a list of events. So community development has also partnered with economic development and our planning department, who's currently doing a comprehensive plan update. And our community support team with our embedded social workers, so that we all are in alignment for doing outreach right now. So we have a extensive community events list that we're also trying to do for just, again, this kind of, we have a booth, we're kind of more passive engagement. We're there, we're in person, but instead of requesting that we do a staff one-on-one presentation, we're just there and available, similar to what we ended up doing at the farmers market this past weekend. We had fabulous response from that, something that we weren't quite sure what we were going to get from it. But again, big shout out to our committee member, Alexis, that helped us in standing and manning that booth and getting those responses in. And it was just really good to see that kind of engagement. It's something that we want to continue to do. So we will try and have a presence at many events. If there's an event that you can think of that we need to be at, please let us know, and we will look at staff capacity, because this is not just something where it's not just Vicki and myself. Again, as I mentioned, we have other city staff that we're trying to do shared messaging with, so that, you know, planners, as they go out and talk about the comprehensive plan, or social workers as they're talking with people about connection to services, or oh my goodness, I'm drawing a blank.
Library,
or I'll take that. Yeah, any of our city staff can go out and just have combined messaging and talk about the consolidated plan, as well as just general other efforts. That being said, if anyone has paid attention to city council as of late, of course, there is active discussion going on in the city budget right now. One of the things that we're starting to notice, and that we're going to start to try and get out also, is how to have good, consistent conversation with understanding that what the city is currently dealing with the budget deficit is very different than what we're currently doing for the funding to go out that you guys oversee. Again, if you were ever, as a committee member, out in public and somebody's asking you about this, the first response is that this is not general fund dollars. You know, the city's budget conversations are centered around general funding that the city receives from, again, tax revenue, property tax revenue. This is separate. It's called special government funding, which is kind of a catch-all for anything that's basically anything that we get in as a grant, any external funding that's coming in. But this is external funding coming in that has to go back out. It cannot supplant or fill the gap of the city's budget deficit. And so it's something that we're seeing is coming up a lot in just general community conversations. People, you know, want to understand, well, how come you're coming out and asking about this $1 million question when there's a budget deficit going on? And while that's a fabulous question to ask, it's also let me help you in kind of understanding that conversation is, while it looks similar, actually completely different than what it is that we're talking about right now. It's just kind of unfortunate timing that both of these are coming up at the same time. But again, this is the federal requirement that we do this, and so we cannot change the timeline on going out with this messaging. So again, I'm going to go over some feedback for the survey that we've gotten thus far, and then I'm also going to give a brief update on what we're going to be doing for the AFFH report, and then otherwise kind of wrap it up on the consolidated plan, unless anybody can think of any questions in the meantime. So for public services, what we're seeing that right now, again, mental health services are the biggest priority need that people are identifying, with almost 70% of our input being targeted to mental health services right now. Both senior and youth basic care are both doing a easy follow-up on that. That's fairly consistent somewhat with where we were 5 years ago too. So it's not a huge surprise, especially in the post-COVID kind of world that we're in, that we're seeing that mental health is a big priority for public service needs. Again, you know, as we continue to move forward, this will be something that we want to just keep in mind. I do also, before I get too much into this, also want to mention that right now also most of our feedback is coming from 60% or more, 60 to 70% is coming from people that are not low income. Only 35% of the survey feedback that we're getting is people that actually will directly benefit from these use of funds. So again, if there's a way for us to continue to get more input, that's something to think about. We also have a very, very high percentage of white respondents for the survey. About 92% of our respondents are white. And while there is a majority of white persons in Everett, again, does that truly reflect all of our demographic makeup in the community now? So things to think about there too. And then, that combined with just again, the general income threshold, we need to kind of start to think about where we can have more opportunity to get the word out for this survey. So again, when proposals come to you guys, you're seeing the kind of use of the funds that we want to see that adequately reflect our community. So again, public services, we're seeing that mental health and basic needs for seniors and youth are high priority. For community public facilities and infrastructure, and again, public facilities and infrastructure can range from anything from food banks to community centers to nonprofit administrative buildings. Again, you guys just helped out with, for example, a re-roof at Childs Drives the Village. That constitutes as a public facility improvement. Public infrastructure can be anything from pedestrian path improvements to also like street lighting. And, I think that I can't remember how we categorized it. Now I'm going to have to ask Vicki for help. But for example, even like the transit semi-seat bus project that we're doing, that qualifies under these categories. Is that public facility or infrastructure? I can't remember how we categorize that one.
I'm thinking infrastructure.
Okay. That sounds good for
one of the two.
Okay. And of course that lends itself to maybe a bit of confusion because again, those are we have to have city staff help with that. But the only reason why those projects came up again, helping in your messaging, is because we went out multiple times for funding to the community on that and never got anybody to utilize those funds. They have to be spent under current timeliness requirements for the federal government. And we ended up looking at opportunities of feedback from this exact effort that we're doing right now of, okay, well, if there's anything that's not being addressed that we need to do, what is that? And it was public facility and infrastructure improvements. And when we looked at doing that, it was something that we also presented to directors and said, this cannot be something you have budgeted before. We have to use money that addresses public infrastructure improvements on things that are not in your city budget. And so be mindful that it is also is an additional effort for city labor to have to even implement these dollars to do this. But the actual cost of the material, the implementation, the design and everything that can be covered with the CDBG funds, and none of it's been budgeted out of the city's general fund dollars. So again, not different pools of funding. So again, I'm trying to just help out with what we currently have going on for projects and what you guys can help out with messaging in the community for it. But again, pulling it back to community public facilities and infrastructure, we're seeing that parks and open space is still a high need. Right now is the high need for the community and feedback with neighborhood facilities. Again, those are the community, senior, and youth centers being the second highest need. Previously, weirdly enough, last time drainage improvements were a higher need 5 years ago. Yeah, who knew, right? And then also pedestrian connections were another one. So basically sidewalk and street lighting improvements. Those are actually some of our lesser priority needs right now. In the tier of what we have, those are not very high ranking, but whether or not that changes in the future, we'll see. There is a lot of stuff that the city in the general budget that we're doing to also address lighting right now and pedestrian improvements. So some of those efforts might be already underway. And so the community might be seeing that, or it may just be that in the general priorities for things, people just want to have more public and open space. Again, post-COVID, we think about the influence of how that ended up shaping the world and the community that we're in right now. People want recreational spaces. So thinking about how to create green open spaces in some of the developments that might be going on in the community. The next category was housing. So with housing, right now, it's again the creation of new, affordable, supportive housing units. So that is the highest need that's come up. Again, the affordability and access improvements. So that goes back to housing vouchers and rental assistance. Again, post-COVID, rental assistance is not a shocker that we are seeing this. Rental assistance was one of the highest utilization uses of our COVID funds. It will probably continue to be in some of our service requests, as you've already seen. So that's just good for us to know. The housing voucher component, that is something that I want to touch on. It's important that we collect that feedback because it allows for us to have more conducive conversations with HUD and other federal agencies. However, those are things that are led by our public housing authorities, Everett Housing Authority and the Housing Authority of Snohomish County being both of the lead housing authorities for our area. And so this is just something that, as we have other discussions in the community, something for us to continue to just be mindful of, that while we do not have the ability to give out housing vouchers, we definitely want to help and be advocates for our partners that we directly work with under HUD that do help to give out vouchers. So it's just something to think about with that. And then, of course, again, so 5 years ago, really where our need was for this was actually for legal aid. Legal aid, though, now is not even one of the higher ranking needs that's been identified. After creation of units and affordability and access improvements, housing placement for special needs is the next one. And that goes into veteran housing, senior housing. So again, specialized group for housings. So again, legal aid being the last one 5 years ago is not where we are at again this time. So again, affordability, accessibility, and then capacity, I think, is where we're really seeing the highest need for housing. The next group is, of course, persons experiencing homelessness. Right now, housing and emergency shelter, again, youth, veteran, and domestic violence shelters are all a high need for our unhoused population, as well as behavioral health services. Again, not a huge surprise considering the community that we're in. Right now, 5 years ago, food banks, food provisions for the unhoused were the highest need for that population. That is tied for the second or third or fourth need for now this time. So again, more emergency sheltering, more emergency housing, and more behavioral health services. Again, in a post-COVID kind of world, congregate care really shifted during COVID. And so it's, again, not surprising that we're seeing that we need more shelter options for persons. Again, the city has done what we can with pallet shelters, which are, again, non-congregate care types of settings. But if you were staying in alignment with our comprehensive plan, which is another reason why we're trying to stay in step with that for the consolidated plan, the 0 to 30% AMI threshold, which is the unhoused population group, is the group that we need to have a couple thousand new beds for just in Everett alone. So again, when we talk about seeing this for funding for you guys, this is actually a tool, a mechanism that can help to accomplish some of the bigger plans, some of the bigger goals that the city has on a larger scale presence that we need to do in other efforts like our comprehensive plan under planning. The last one is a category, which is economic development. The highest need on that one is a job skill training and workforce programs, so job placement programs. Last time it was actually exterior building facade repair was one of the higher needs for it. So of course, this time we're seeing that instead we need actually trained workforce and job placement aid on that. Again, not a huge surprise post-COVID that we're seeing some big demand for people wanting more skill, diversification of skill, change of workforce, getting the ability to get people, again, generating revenue and generating income. Those are the main categories for needs. One of the, when I did present these findings recently to the Human Service Executive Council for Snohomish County so that we could work directly with our agencies that are providing some of these services to our most vulnerable residents. I presented all these findings to them. I'm going to carry the same message that I did for them, which was to also look at, we have barrier and challenge impediment questions that we have on our survey as well. I'm going to carry out the one that ended up being for this public services when I presented to them. We have other ones on housing and infrastructure, but the one that for public services, since that is the highest pool of demand that we get for our funding. The challenge for that came back that again, demand for services was too high, which really means that, there's too long of a wait time. It takes too long for somebody to see me. What that translates into when we're looking at, again, funding recommendations is that agencies, and again, this is not a huge surprise for us, but are having capacity constraints when it comes to being able to provide services. So that means that we need to be able to see, or we will probably see from our agencies, more demands for operational support, more demands for staffing support. Again, not a huge surprise. Livable wages has been a big discussion for our agencies and our nonprofits in the last few years. So they want to be able to have competitive pay for the people that are working in the agencies and the community partners that we have. And not only that, but also continuing to retain and maintain delivery of service, especially again, in the post-COVID impact world where the demand for services got so high. A lot of agencies, a lot of partners are still recovering from that. We're kind of sort of seeing them come out of some of that this time, which is great. But again, capacity, coming back from having fundraising constraints for the last few years, it's kind of, those are symptoms where we end up seeing that the main result that people are seeing for this is that it just takes too long for people to get services. So again, when you think about funding proposals that are going to be coming to you in the next few years, you're going to be looking at seeing that agencies are going to want to see how they can maintain delivery of service and how to maintain and increase also their capacity and the staff that they have, right? So just things for us to think about. These are, again, we still have almost a little bit less than 4 months to go out for the survey. This is 500 responses. I can't not wait to see how the next 500 continue to shape the input that we're getting on this. And we're going to present all of this in a nice, last time we did a nice executive report for our needs assessment. So some nice kind of summary of needs for you guys to be able to look at for it and just see where we're at for it. But again, it's also kind of cool because now we can also do a comparative analysis from where we were 5 years and we haven't really, 5 years ago, and we haven't really had the ability to do that in the past. Whew, that was a lot on needs. That was a lot on the survey. I just want to pause real quick before I get into the affirmatively furthering fair housing, the AFFH report, just to see if anybody has any questions on this, on what I presented thus far. It's also going to allow me to take a brief drink of water in case anybody just wants to take the opportunity. Okie dokie, hearing none, I'm going to continue to go forward. Please email me if you can think of anything. So the other component with this is that we're getting all these needs, right? We're doing all this public engagement work. We have this survey going on. We're going to continue to collect this kind of general community input. And then with that, we're also going to pull it with what we see departments and companies and partners and all of the kind of just also kind of, is market level data that we have with it. We are going to do a market analysis also combining with this. So what does the raw data actually tell us for housing development, cost of housing, the job workforce, all of it. So we're going to pool all that together, and that helps to provide information for you guys to, again, determine, okay, understanding the constraints for housing perceived by the public, the constraints for housing under the development purview. Let's pull it all together. What are our priorities for funding for the next 5 years, right? So again, we're going to bring all this together. We have that going on. But another component that we are working on with this consolidated plan is, again, picking back up the affirmatively furthering fair housing AFFH rule that was put out. And with that, we have an affirmative fair housing report that we have to do and an equity plan. And when we do all of that, what we're looking at is, in the past, the city of Everett did what's called an analysis of impediments to fair housing. So we had a contractor come in and say that, hey, we've looked at your discrimination complaints with the state. We've looked at your zoning laws. We've looked at how you guys allocate resources. We have looked at We've talked with individuals on stuff. We've looked at what available multiple family or rental housing stock you guys have. These are the impediments to people accessing fair and equitable housing in your community. And we had impediments that were identified. It's still on the website if anybody wants to go take a look at it or has any interest in doing that. It's still up. It will continue to be up for the rest of the 2024 program year. But when we pick this up for the AFFH report, what we're doing is we're going to be doing that. In addition to, we also have a new charge that was under HUD in 2021, somewhere about, for an equity plan, which was HUD basically saying, look, thank you so much for going out and doing this raw data collection. We hire a consultant, they go through, they sleuth all this information. But when you're actually talking with people that are actually trying to access and having the true impediments to equitable and fair housing, we're seeing that there's not great effort from municipalities on talking with the people that are truly being affected by these issues. And so HUD required that, along with affirmatively, too many A and F's and all of this, alphabet soup. So when it comes down to us doing an assessment of fair housing report, we have to create an equity plan. And so that is going to be a whole nother public engagement effort. And we're going to try and align it with the public hearings that we currently already have and the public engagement efforts that we currently have in place for the consolidated plan. Because again, fatigue is a real thing that, not only you guys, but the community will be feeling with this. So how do we effectively kind of combine efforts on this? But we do need to go out and make an effort to do an equitable plan of trying to assess fair housing. So we're going to be hiring a consultant in the next few months, and that consultant will compile all of this data. They will get all of this public engagement going. And again, they're going to come back to you guys and then say, hey, these are our findings. This is what we've wanted to present for you guys to respond to fair housing impediments. You guys will then ask questions, help us in honing that report. And then that report then will also be built into the comprehensive plan that's going to be adopted by planning, because of course, again, what we're looking at is impediments to housing for those that are 80% AMI or below, right? Our low and vulnerable income populations. And again, those impediments, because they do an analysis of zoning law, because they do look at discrimination complaints, because they do look at our multiple family housing developments, will get built back into our comprehensive plan for the larger 20-year plan that planning does. So many plans that planning does to be able to look at how do we accommodate development in our community for the next 20 years. So again, this report will fulfill some of the stuff that we need to do in response for HUD for the consolidated plan, but it's also going to be carried forward in the other city planning department efforts for long-range development within the city. So I just want to get everybody an update on that. Vicki and I are still working on finalizing the scope with our procurement office that will end up putting the contract out for the consultant to be able to do all this work. It's probable that we're really not going to have too much to present to you guys until the August 20th hearing, but just keep all of us accountable and on the same page and moving forward with it. It's just good that you guys know that we are still picking that up and moving forward in the AFFH effort. Another pause for dramatic effect. Any questions so far on any of this? Wow, you guys are so like on it. I mean, like this makes my head spin sometimes. And you guys are like, no, we got it. This is good. Okay. Okay. Well, then we're wrapping up quickly. I think the only thing left, and I'm actually on time for this one, is staff updates and next steps. So Chair, just give me a nod if it's okay for me to continue to move forward on staff updates and next steps. Okay. Okie dokie. So this is going back to, again, I told you I'd make a mention about our membership. And I'm going to do that now. Yes, we did have a quick chair change. So thank you so much to Josh for jumping in and being our chair on that one. But all that to say that we are seeing that there is some changes going on with committee membership. This is something where staff is going to be reaching out and really kind of having strong and maybe even difficult conversations about committee members participating in this group. I have to have an active list of people on the committee so that, again, my quorum can be established for us to get funding moving forward. I cannot express, again, the gratitude and the thanks and the appreciation I have for everybody that is on this call and for all of our committee members that have been with us anyway on this. None of this is easy work. It's very high level. It's also, you guys are treated a bit differently than any other board and committee in the city because you have this federal component. So it almost makes you quasi-judicial in the sense of we have to have all these hearings, and it is very high level, and it is very, dense in its subject matter. And there are, in the fall, you guys just get absolute over a deluge of just assignments from us for review. But again, it is so important that we continue to move forward with active members that help us in maintaining compliance moving forward for our federal requirements, and also have due diligence when it comes to reviewing application proposals from our agencies. We have to show that we have this transparent, open communication with them, and that we also understand the nature of the work that they're doing, especially when we spent so much time trying to just hear from them on the importance of the work that they do. So again, just expect that we're going to be reaching out to you soon on this. I am going to go ahead and call it out that we have lost a few members. So again, Samantha Hassan has stepped away from the committee very recently. We did also lose Matt Bissell through attrition on this one too. And so it's going to end up being that, as we move forward, we might see one or two other changes happening. Even if that happens, please still continue to send people who might be a great fit for this committee to us. It is so important, again, as I mentioned, that we have an active group that represents the city, that represents the community that we're trying to work with. And I think that the voices that we have on this committee are so important. And so continue to have diverse voices to help lift up the message and the importance of the work that we're doing. You guys are our champions in the community to do this and to get the word out. And so I have to come back to you and ask that you help us in getting that message. Recommend people to us. We're going to try and get, again, a full active roster of 9 active committee members for this committee because of the important work that we have going on in the next few months. So I wanted to give an update on that. And then I can't think of anything else that's other major updates. We have so much work going on in community development in general. If you guys haven't met Chelsea Monroe, she's our new project coordinator that's been with us to help do outreach on that. She's been really helpful in trying to get the consolidated plan up and going. We have work that we're going to continue to do to get the material for the consolidated plan on the website. I have this big project that I want to see about a story map of our impact of the last 50 years of funding that we've gotten from HUD, and showing that in a interactive map and dashboard that can be used so that the public can see that, again, the impact of these use of funds and where we want to take the next 50 years of funding for us. So that's going to continue to be on the website. So please help keep us on track and accountable with that if any questions come up for it. We also, again, just have, I alluded to this in somewhat of the ordinance work, but we have so much money coming in from other efforts. The city is, one of the things I'm taking to council in the next few weeks is that I'm going to present an interlocal agreement for affordable housing behavioral health funding. Snohomish County gets about $20 million every year for tax revenue dollars for affordable housing behavioral health funds. We have gotten a seat on their technical advisory committee. And when I say we've gotten a seat, the city has, to try and look at leveraging that funding to help with city partnerships and city projects. The city also has our own tax revenue amount under the the ordinances 1590 and 1406, I believe, are the laws that allow us to collect those funds for that. And of course, that's again, some of the stuff where if we go out for when we get to go out for competitive application for these pools of money, and we want them to continue to accrue for a while so that we actually have something we can leverage. But those projects will be some of what this committee actually helps to oversee. So we're looking at, again, helping to expand some of the work that you guys do. It's not just going to be federal HUD money. It's not just going to be human needs, municipal funding. We have new revenue streams that are coming in. How do we help to get that out? The city is also a direct recipient of other funds that are out there. Opioid settlement dollars have come into municipalities recently as well. I have a professional service agreement I'm helping to present to council that's for our remote program, our emergency treatment and opioid. Emergency mobile opioid treatment in Everett. So many acronyms that is going out as a professional service agreement that is going out is going to provide treatment and opioid addiction treatment as well, behavioral health treatment to at a service level in a mobile clinic kind of effort that's going to be on the streets for unhoused persons in Everett. And so that's going to be coming up to council soon in the next few weeks. So we have opioid settlement dollars. We have AHBH funding that's coming through. And again, we're going to just continue to see with the city has done, again, because of our budget constraints, we have looked to become more direct recipients of grant funding so that we can help in getting some of our service delivery out so we can continue to help in responding to community needs. And whether that's going to be through congressional appropriations that we hopefully continue to pursue, or whether that's state grants or pass-through funding from the county, we will continue to kind of see how we can bring those conversations again now to this group so that we can have that kind of input, that kind of direction. And again, in the expansion of the ordinance that I just got through council, that's why we're starting to do some of this now, is to really kind of open the door so that you guys can help in leading us in some of those discussions. Ooh. Any other questions? There's just so much going on. I'm happy to give any updates if there are any direct questions on stuff. Vicky's going to help me keep me accountable if she can think of anything. Great. I guess the only other thing that we can think of, or that would be fun to announce, is that we do have Vicki and other staff have been working hard on a National Environmental Protection Act environmental assessment for Everett Housing Authority for Ben Young project. It's going to be 200 affordable housing units for seniors. It's tentatively scheduled on Rucker.
Yeah, on Rucker. Yeah.
Whew. Separate from the Park District, is under the 2024 plan for Everett Housing Authority. So it is slated for them to try and pick up after July 1st, but it's quite a good substantial project. They don't have any federal funding other than vouchers that they're dedicating to it, which is a reason why you guys haven't probably seen anything with it. They're trying to leverage some of the project-based vouchers that they have. To be able to create this new affordable housing unit, but it's just a good update for you guys to be aware of for affordable housing in Everett. And then outside of that, the only other thing I think I'll make a plug for is that we have a special projects housing manager, Frank Hong. And if anybody hasn't had the chance to connect with Frank, he's fabulous in talking about housing in the city. So if you ever get the chance or get bored or have questions, please connect with Frank. Okay, now I promise I'm done. I'm done. And if there aren't any questions, Chair, I'm going to give it back to you.
Okay. So any last minute questions, comments? If not, then I guess I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn our meeting for today.
Any second?
I second the motion.
Awesome. Thank you. Motion seconded. Anybody against? No? Awesome. All right. I will call this meeting adjourned.